Gajananam bhutaganaatisevitam kapittajambupalasaarapakshitam Umasutam soka vinashakaranam namaami Vigneshwara pada pankajam. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sadashiva Samarambam, Sankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmat Acharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Parampara. Sarvesham Swagatam. Welcome to everyone for the Easy Sanskrit online class number 3 today. As usual, we started with the Dhyana Slogam, which is appearing on the slide, as you know. And since the language of Sanskrit started with Lord Sadashiva himself, we say Sadashiva Samarambam. And we offer our salutations to all the Guru Parampara. So, quick review of last lesson, especially for those who missed it. We learned about the Devanagari script, what are its unique features. We also learned the classification of vowels, the categories of consonants, and how to write the Sanskrit script. I gave an illustration, and I'm sure many of you would have followed that. And if anyone has a problem with writing, please let me know. I'll give them some tips on how to do it. And we learned about consonant formation, how the consonant join together, and also about sandhi, really meaning junction. What is sandhi? Connections, and I gave some illustrations. And we started with the basics of grammar, especially the cases and some illustrations. So we are going to follow up on the last lesson. In today's lesson, our goals are to learn about persons and genders, the 3 numbers. There is a term called dhatu, and I want to explain what are dhatus. And we're going to start learning verbs, which forms the most important part of any sentence. The classification, the variations and illustrations, how does it differ from English? And in the process, of course, some nice verses as usual. So that's a goal for today, and I hope we'll be able to complete it within the 1 hour. Okay, starting with persons and genders. Oh, it is very like English. You have a first person, a second person, and a third person. The first person refers to I, which is aham. Aham is I. The second person is you, which is called tvam. Tvam. And the third person refers to a he or a she. If he happens to be he, then we say saha. If it is she, we say sa. Aham, tvam, saha, sa. So these are the first person, second person, and third person. Easy for you to follow it. You will be using them in future. So remember, aham, tvam, saha, sa. In Sanskrit, genders are kind of unusual. We have 3 genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter genders. But there are no definite rules. In fact, some of them may seem to be a little funny. For example, for the same object, we may have different genders. If you take wife, for example, in English, it is definitely feminine. But in Sanskrit, we have some terms like dhara. Dhara is referring to a wife, but it is masculine in gender. Bharya also refers to a wife, but it is feminine in gender. The third word is kalatra. Kalatra also refers to a wife, but it is neutral. So you have, for the same object, three different genders. Another example is referring to the body. You say kayaha. In Tamil, we say kayame idu poyyada. There is a song which starts that this body, kayaha, is untruth. Kayaha is actually a Sanskrit word referring to the body. Tanuhu also refers to body, but it is feminine in gender. Shariram also refers to the body, but it is neutral. So, when you have a doubt about the gender of a word, I would suggest to refer to a Sanskrit dictionary, because each could be different. It's a little funny. A mustache can be feminine and a petticoat can be masculine. So you have these kind of variations in the genders. So this is something unusual in Sanskrit, and one should refer to a dictionary to know what exactly is the gender of a word. So having said that, let's go further about the three numbers. What are the three numbers? So you generally have singular, dual, and plural. Now it's unlike English, because where you have singular and dual, plural only. Here you have three numbers, and I'm giving some examples of singular words, like for example, Ramaha, Hari. Now these are singular. Shashi Dharan. Shashi and Dharan are two different words. Shashi referring to the moon, and Dharan is one who holds it. But when combined together, Shashi Dharan, it becomes singular. It's also a name, people have it. And Shashi actually comes from Shashank. Shashank refers to a rabbit. When you look at the moon, you feel there is a figure of a rabbit. So it's called Shashi. So you find Sanskrit, the words are inherited from many, many illustrations that you actually see. Shashi Dharan is one single word composing of two different words. Narasimha, you all know the famous avataram of Narasimha. Nara means man and Simha is lion. But people keep name as Narasimhan. This is one singular word. Likewise, Gangadharan, one who holds Ganga on his head, referring to Lord Shiva. So these are some of the examples for singular words. You also have dual, which I have given some examples like Ramo, Ramaha, Ramo. Ramo refers to two Ramas. Likewise, Hari. No, there is a difference between singular Hari and dual Hari. You can see it. The horn on the top comes over Ra in case of dual. Hari. Netre, two eyes. Karnau, two ears. There is also a very nice sentence called Jagataha Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau. Now Pitarau is dual here, but because he happens to be the father of all humanity, all beings, it's pronounced Jagataha Pitarau because he is with Parvati, and Parvati and Shiva are considered here as two different entities. Jagataha Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau. So it's dual, but in the sense it is put in, it is actually Jagataha Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau. The entire universe is praying that universal God and mother. Plural, which means more than two, multiple. Like Ramaha. Ramaha means more than two Ramas. Prajaha, citizens. Harayaha, which is the plural of Hari. There are more than two Haris, you say Harayaha. Sometimes it's also referred as a mark of respect. Even though there is only one person, it denotes a lineage like Iti Sankaracharyaha. Sankaracharyaha, which refers to multiple Sankaracharyas, referring to the lineage of Sankaracharya. So there are exceptions to the rule, but this is the general singular, dual, plural way of saying the words. Let's go a little further. Now this lesson may be a little harder than the previous two. But essentially, I want to cover some of most important part of Sanskrit grammar because you will be using them and you'll also be able to understand how they are applied in sentences. So that is the reason we are going to give you in a tabular form many of the things for you to easily understand. So I put the first person on the top, singular, dual, plural, aham, avam, vayam. Second person, tvam, yuvam, yuyam. Swam, yuvam, yuyam, which refers to you, you too, and you all. Maybe sometime I will give you some exercises which will make you use these words. Third person, given the gender. Now, first and second person, you can use those words for all genders. But for third person, there is a difference. So singular, you say saha. Dual, you say tau. And plural, you say te, he. They too, referring to two persons who are male, tau. And they all. For feminine, you say sa, she. Te, if they are two ladies. And taha, if they are more than two ladies, feminine. Neuter, tat. Probably the word that comes from there. You say tat, it. Te, again, it's similar to the feminine dual. Te is referring to those two. And tani is those all objects. So you have here saha, tau, te, referring to masculine gender. And feminine, you say sa, te, taha. And for objects which are neuter, you say tat, te, tani. So you have 15 expressions in Sanskrit to describe a person and gender together, while English has only 7. So to that extent, it is a little harder and more complicated. But don't worry about it. It's not very difficult. As you start practicing it, you will get into that usage of these persons in singular, plural, dual, and using the correct gender. And as you learn some slokams, you'll find it even easier. Okay, that's about the persons. What are dhatus? Now you'll come across this word dhatu very often. In Tamil also we use this word dhatu. Even in Marathi, it's also used dhatu. In Tamil we say dhatu porulgal, which is raw materials. See here dhatu refers to roots. In English, when you have a sentence, you have 8 parts of speech. You have nouns, pronouns, adverbs, adjectives, and so on. But in Sanskrit, words are built using basically roots, what are called as dhatus. Now, the dhatus are like bricks in a building, you know. When you start making a building, you place brick by brick and build a wall and then eventually make a building. So these dhatus are bricks, like bricks in buildings. So you place one above the other and then you start building a word, and then the words combine together to form a sentence. So that is how these dhatus are so important. And everything's come from certain dhatus. Like, for example, I'm just giving you, there'll be more to follow on this. Kru. Kru means to do. Kru is a dhatu, which is a root. Based on this root, you can build word like karomi. Karo means I do. Refers to oneself. Kurmaha. We do. Kritam. Done. I mentioned in the first class, sums kritam, right? Sums mean well. Kritam means done, well done. It's a language which is very well done. So kritam comes from the root kru. So you join kru and tam, which means done. And actually I will show you later on how these suffixes come in. Bhu is another dhatu, which is a root. To bhu is not BWO as in English, but here it is to be. To be. Bhu. Bhavami comes from the root ba, bhu, which means I am. Bhavami. Sambhavam. You have a suffix and a prefix too. And ba, the root is at the center, which means an incident. Sambhavam. So you have the root, which is the core on which you add certain things and make it a word. And that is used in a sentence. So as you go along, you will find how this is getting used. And the basic root is what is most important in Sanskrit. Okay. Let's go further. How to use dhatus in a sentence, for example. I'm giving one sentence here, which is Siddhi Bhavati Karmaja. Siddhi Bhavati Karmaja. For those who, if you cannot read Devanagari, there is a transliteration right below this Sanskrit word, so you can follow it. What it means is accomplishment is a consequence. Actually, it should read is. There is a mistake there. Accomplishment is a consequence of deeds. What you do eventually results in accomplishment. This is a core of any educational institution. Now here you have 4 dhatus. The first dhatu is siddh, from which comes siddhihi, is accomplishment. The second dhatu is bhu, which I mentioned in the earlier slide, from which comes bhavati, the verb. And third, you have kru again, which comes in karmaja, the first letter you have, and jan, which is dhatu here, comes as the suffix ja. So, siddhi bhavati karmaja, a sentence which has got 3 words, siddhi, bhavati, and karmaja, has 4 dhatus. So, this is how from a single dhatu, words are built up. So this is an example for you to know how it is built up in a sentence. Going further, like to get into the basics of verbs using dhatus. And verbs are built up. We have more than 2,000 dhatus. Something like 2,047 dhatus to be precise. And the verbs are built up from using these dhatus. How is it built up? Now it is based on the receiver of the result of an activity. Like, for example, give. You give it to others. Actions done for the sake of others. It is called parasmaipada. Paras means somebody else. Paraha. For parasmaipada, action done for others, like give. That is one category. The second category is called atmanepada, which are activities done for oneself, within oneself. Like, for example, I sleep. I do it for myself. I don't sleep for others. I enjoy within myself. I rejoice. So those kind of activities are done for self. Eat. I do it for myself. So there are these two activities, one done for self and others done for others. There's also a third kind of activity, what is called ubhayapada, which may be some actions done for both, for self as well as for others. Like, for example, cooking. You might cook for yourself, but you might also cook for others. In both the cases, the verb will be different. If you are cooking for yourself, you use the verb pachate. And if you are going to cook for others, then you say pachati. A professional cook, for example, does the cooking for others in a restaurant. So you say pachati when it comes to him. But if you are going to make a sandwich yourself, you say pachate. So you have, therefore, the differences in the usage of verbs depending upon who is the receiver of the result of your activity. So here, there's a difference between English and Sanskrit very much. But English, you say cook means it applies to anybody. So, going further, every verb has a root dhatu. Dhatu, for example, the word gacha. Gacha means to go. Aham gachati. I go. It comes from the root gam. Gam means to go. Now this gam, the root can form different words like gamana. Gamana means departure. I'm leaving now. Agamana. I'm arriving, I'm coming. You see, it's very simple in Sanskrit to make opposite words. You just add a, it becomes opposite. Now you find departure and arrival, they are two different words in English. But in Sanskrit, it's so easy. You find in railway stations in India, they announce in Hindi, they say agamana. Hindi word, but derived from Sanskrit. So you just add a. Gamana becomes opposite by using the word agamana, departure and arrival. Nyaya, anyaya, dharma, adharma, gora, agora. So they become opposite. It's very easy to form opposites in Sanskrit, unlike English. gati, atigam, upagama. These are all based on the root verb of gam. So typically you can find in a verb, there are four components. Four, I would say. One is a prefix followed by a root, and there is a stem affixed to it, and there is a verbal ending. Like gacchati, agamana. You have a prefix of a, gam is a verb root. Then you have a stem affix and verbal ending, agamanam. So it's a very simple way of forming a verb. These four components form together to form a verb. Now, this is one example, but this list can go on with hundreds of words. Fortunately, most common thing amongst verbs is the verbs end in a. A ending verbs are the most common. I would say almost 90%. So that makes it even easier, right? Okay, so this is the important thing here. The root is the important thing on which you build up the verb. Going further, I'm giving you some examples of the roots. Like we said gam, to go. Chara means to walk. Jaya is to gain. Used even for profit. Victory. Jiva is to live. Naya, to lead. From the root naya becomes the word nayak, nayakan. Leader, nayakan is leader. It comes from the root naya. Baba, to be. Socha, socha really means to suffer. But people think it refers to think. But thinking is also sometimes suffering for people, right? Very hard to think. So, by addition of prefixes and suffixes to the basic root, you build the verb. Pretty simple. But there are so many of these basic roots. As you go on, you will learn these basic roots and you will find it more and more getting expanded, and then you will build your vocabulary of words will grow much faster. Okay, having said that, let's go to classification of verbs. Now, verbs are classified or categorized into 10 different groups. Now, Panini has done this, and it's a very, very interesting kind of derivation that you have in Sanskrit, that you have what is called Dasha Gani. Dasha Gani. Dasha means 10, Gani means group, 10 groups. Now, each Gana, you have a dhatu which leads it. It's headed by a dhatu root. Like Bu, we mentioned earlier, Ada, Hu, Divu. These are some of these dhatu roots which are headed. Now, Ganas are classes which define the specific changes that must happen to a verb before they accept conjugations, before they accept the suffixes. So here you have a verse actually which tells you the 10 different ganas. Don't worry too much about this verse because it's a verse to make things easier to understand the 10 ganas. The next slide, I'm going to show you this every word in this verse. Babat yadadi juhotyadihi divadihi swadirevacha. Tudadischa, Rudadischa, Tanadihi, Kri Churadayaha. Those are the two lines in this verse. If you look into it further, Bhu Bhavati, the first gana is called Bhavadi. Bhavadi. Now, these ganas are all unequal. They don't have a regularity or a particular rule governing this. They are just grouped into different groups, but unequal groups. But you see the ganas, how the words are formed. Bhavadi is one, Vivadi is another one, Tudadi is another one, Charadi is another one, Adadi is another one, Jahotyadi, Swadi, Rudadi, Tanadi, Kriyadi. So these are the 10 ganas that you have. And the verbs, how they are formed, I've given some example. Like Bhavadi, you have Bhu, Bhavati. Divadi, you have Divyati. Tudati, Chorayati. Chora is stealing. Ati, Juhoti, Sunoti. Sunoti is hearing. Sunute. Rudati, Tanoti, Krinite. These are some of the verbs which are formed out of this. Okay. The 10 classifications what you have got are very, very important in Sanskrit grammar. And they are the core of, shall I say, it will go back to this. They are the core of any verb classification. The numbers which are given in the left column, they are not 1, 2, 3. They are followed the the verse as such. But Bhavati means Bhavati is to be, as I said, Adi. Divadi, like Adi, is number 2, which is coming here. Adadi, referring to eating. Juhoti, Juhotyadi, number 3, is actually offering oblations into fire. Yaham. Divati. Divadi is number 4. Like playing a game of dice. Swadi. Swadi, which is number 5. Swadi is also referring to juice, making an extract. 6, Tudadi. Tudadi is actually suffering in pain. So you have likewise different verbs having different meanings and classified into these 10 ganas, what is called Dasagani. The second important classification is referring to tenses and moods, which are called lakaras, because they all start with la, therefore they are called as lakaras. Here also you have a verse. Latavartamane let vede bhute lunka lanka litasata vidyasishostu linka lautau lutulata lankacha bhavishyataha. No, there are actually 6 tenses and 4 modes. The modes, if you see the 6 tenses, say present tense, latter, that comes in lakaram. And you have past tense, past perfect tense, past remote tense, past conditional tense, which are forming the lutalunka, littlunka. Future perfect is little. The four moods which came to Vartamane means tense. Late Vede is more common in Veda, used in Vedic language. Bhute is past tense. Bhutakalam nu Tamil solva. Bhutakalam. Those three refers to Bhutakalam, which is past tense. Vidya Sushestu, they are more in the form of command or giving instructions or giving orders. Lingalauto. And Bhavishyataha is future. When you say somebody wants to show the horoscope, it's called Hamara Bhavishya kaisa hai, they call about the future. Little linker. So you have these 10 lakaras, which include 6 tenses and 4 moods. Now you don't have a 4 moods thing in Sanskrit. So going further, I want to give you a summary of the verbs. How the features influence the verb. First, of course, the persons, we saw it. First person, second person, and third person. First person in Sanskrit is called Uttama Purusha. Uttama Purusha is really the best person, and best person can be only yourself. I. Uttama Purusha. Very beautiful way of describing first person. Second person is a Madhyama Purusha. It's a middle person. Third person also given importance, like Prathama Purusha, even though Prathama means first, but here it is used for describing a third person. So Prathama Purusha, given importance. Prime person. Like you say, Prathama Mantri, right? Importance. So you have the first, second, and third person, Uttama, Madhyama, and Prathama Purusha. And 3 numbers, singular, what is called Eka Vachanam. Dual is called Dvi Vachanam. And plural is Bahu Vachanam. Now, Eka refers to 1. Vachanam is to speak. Dvi refers to 2. Actually, the word dual probably comes from Dvi. Plural, more than 2, you have many, Bahu Vachanam. Bahu is also used for long. Bahu Duram is long distance. So you have the other feature, which is 10 ganas, which is Dasagani, we call it, which are the roots contributing to form a verb. And then you have the tenses, which are again 10 tenses, lakaras as we call them, which includes 6 tenses and 4 moods. So this is a quick snapshot of how verbs are made. The summary of features. Now I'm going to give you some precise examples. Going further, let's say Gacha is the one word, verb root you have. Gachami. It refers to the first person, I go. Aham gachami. I go. You see, gacha, me. Now, me, I put in green color so that you know that's indicating the verb. And the person, aham gachami. If we are plural, we are together, and we say we go, it becomes gachamaha. Aham, baham, gacchamaha. If there are only two people, the two of us go, it becomes gacchavaha. All these first person. Now you go to second person, saha gacchasi. Gacchati, third person singular, he goes. When it becomes plural third person, they go, you say gacchanti. So you have 6 conjugations here from the one root gam, to go. Gacchami, gacchamaha, gacchavaha, gacchasi, gacchati, gacchanti. You go, he goes, they go. So the endings to the verb, which are marked in green here, they produce the meaningful verbs. They tell you how many people and who are they, like gender particularly. Okay, another example, illustrations here. From the root vada, to speak. Vadami, aham vadami, I speak. Vadasi, vadati, singular, first person. Vadavaha, vadataha, vadataha, dual. Vadamaha, plural. Vadata, vadanti. So in each case, you find the red and the blue markings. They are the suffixes that come in. So first person, aham vadami. Second person, he speaks, vadasi. They speak, vadati. You speak and he speaks. Second person is you speak. Third person, he speaks. And the dual and plural, they come in the yellow and the blue band. So in each case, you have to add the person to make a sentence. Like, aham vadami, I speak. One more illustration, piba. Piba is to drink. Pibami, I drink. Pibasi, you drink. Tvam pibasi, you drink. Pibati, he drinks. Pibavaha, two people. We two. Pibataha, second person, she, two people. Pibataha, two people again. Pibamaha, plural. We, more than two people. Pibata, pibanti. They all drink together. Pibanti. So these are some of the illustrations which we will be using in future. Like kr, to do. Again, I've conjugated this. Like karomi, karoshi, karoti. Kurvaha, kurutaha, kurutaha, with the difference in ta. Kurmaha, kuruta, kurvanti. Now don't worry too much about it because I'm just illustrating this. You will be learning more of it when I'm going to tell you the verses. And that's one easy way of learning Sanskrit. Because if you worry too much about grammar, then you will not be able to focus your attention on understanding the meanings of verses. The other way about, you learn the meaning of verses, you know why a verb is used in a particular way there. Okay, so I'm just giving you purely for illustrations, not to break your head with too many too many verbs and too many illustrations. Because conjugations are very complicated in Sanskrit, and it can make a person get frustrated. So I want you to just understand that these are only purely for illustrations, not to keep on reciting it. Okay. So here, just to give you an illustration of how the verb varies. No, it is more complicated than English. If you see English, there are only two forms. If you say go, go and goes. But in Sanskrit, you have 15 verbs, which vary according to the person, first, second, or third, and also the number, singular, dual, or plural. Like in this table, you have I go, aham gacchami, avam gacchavaha, we two go, vayam gacchamaha, we more than two go. In English, you say I go or we go, that's it. But here, depending on how many people. Tvam gacchasi, you go. There are two people, you two go. Yuvam gacchataha, yuyam gacchata. Saha gacchati, tau gacchataha. Two people go, they two. Te gacchanti, more than two people go. Sa gacchati, she goes. Te gacchataha. You see, in English, you say she goes. And he goes. There is no difference in gender. So here, you find there is gender element also coming in here. If you say, they too, feminine gender goes. They, te gacchataha, which are different ta. Ta gacchanti. They, plural, gacchanti. In English, you say just go, right? Tat gacchati. Te gacchataha. Tani gacchanti. So you have 15 different variations coming in. So depending on the context, you use the verb. So we will learn this more as we go by, as we progress into lessons and we learn sentences, you will find how they're being used. So that you know this verb is used this way because of the context. Okay. Come to tenses, present tense. If you see the stem, which is tishta, which means to stand. Aham tishtami, I stand. Third person, tishtati. Pashya is to see. Pashyami, I see. Bodha. In fact, the word Buddha comes from Bodha. Awakening. Bodhami, bodhati. Smara, smarami. I remember. It's also used for meditation. I meditate. Smarati. Third person. Hasa, to laugh. Hasami, hasati. So that's how the stem is used while forming a verb with the addition of the last suffixes. Okay, so that I want to give you one example of a verse, a beautiful verse, which was the first verse, first slokam of the great poet Kalidasa. You all probably have heard his name. He was the court poet in the kingdom of Bhojaraja, one of the greatest poets who created some of the marvelous scriptures like Raghuvamsham. He was actually, before he became a Mahakavi, he was a foolish woodcutter. And there is a story behind how he became a Kavi. By a conspiracy, he was married to the princess. The princess, having realized he is a fool, told him, you go into Kali temple and pray. So he went himself inside the sanctum and locked himself. When Kali came, he refused to open the door unless he became blessed by Kali herself. Kali said, okay, you let me in, I'll bless you. And he got the blessings. And the very first slokam which came as a great poet was this Dantakam. Dantakam is really a kind of a prose. It's really non-stop. But in a poetry form, which has more than 26 syllables in some lines. So the very first verse is Manikya Veenam Upalalayantim Madhalasam Manjula Vagvilasam Mahendra Neela Dviti Komalangim Matanga Kanyam Manasa Smarami. I heard this verse when I was 8 years old. I didn't know Sanskrit. I couldn't read or write. But I heard my aunt recite it, and it still is registered in my memory. The beauty of this is you use all beautiful words, and the verbs are also used. Smarami, I mentioned just one slide before, is the last word here. Manasa Smarami, I meditate from my heart. Who? Matanga Kanyam. Matanga was a saint. Matanga Munivar. He was a rishi. And the goddess was born as his daughter, so it's called Matanga Kanyam. Then Matanga. Matanga means belonging to Matanga. Matanga Kanyam. Daughter of Matanga. I worship her. Who is she? The one who holds Manikya Veenam. Manikya is studded with Manikam gems. Upalalayantim. Lala is to play. Lalita, you know the name, Lalita, one who is playful. Many terms in India are derived from Sanskrit roots, which describe some activity or some god or goddess. Lalayantim, one who plays beautifully on the Manikya Veena which is studded with gems. Madalasam Manjula Vagvilasam. She's so jubilant, Madalasam, filled with ecstasy out of her exuberance in the words, the expressions, her manner of speaking. Manjula, sweet words. It also could mean that Mahakavi Kalidasa himself, because he acquired that ability to talk so fluently, that he became ecstatic. Mahendra Neela Dviti Komalangim, one who's a body which is filled with beautiful blue color. To that deity, I worship from my heart. So if the goddess could convert a fool into a Mahakavi, why can't she convert us? Definitely she can bless us to learn this beautiful divine Deva Bhasha, as we call Sanskrit, to be able to understand and appreciate the beautiful verses that are going to be there. So start in the first class. I'm not promising I'm going to make you an expert in Sanskrit language conversation, but certainly I'll do my best to make sure that you appreciate the beauty of Sanskrit as is reflected from various verses. So with that, I conclude today's session, and I'm going to unmute all so that if there's anyone questioning, we can start asking. I've unmuted all of you now.
Mama, these slides are available. The recording.
They're in the recording itself.
Okay.
Are you able to see them?
I haven't tried.